He carefully prepared a bouquet for his fiancée, but quietly plucked one flower, and handed it to his first love. What he didn't realize was that his fiancée had seen everything. She said nothing, not even when he offered her the bouquet later, only to watch her toss it aside without a word. She refused to hear his explanation. Instead, she made her own decision, to break the engagement, but not in the way anyone expected. She went straight to his older brother, the powerful CEO of the family business, and offered all her personal wealth as collateral, in exchange for a new engagement. She knew that in a family like theirs, marriage wasn't just personal, it was strategic, and if she couldn't marry the younger brother, she would marry the one who held real power. What she didn't know was that the CEO had long harbored feelings for her, but years ago, family pressure forced her to choose his brother instead. She raised her price, again and again, until finally, the CEO asked, "What if I say no? What will you do then?" She paused, then turned to leave, assuming that was his answer. But before she reached the door, he said yes. With the engagement now settled, she turned her focus to an upcoming overseas study program. She was ready to move on, but her ex-fiancé had no idea. Oblivious to her plans, he continued visiting as usual, even bringing her favorite snacks, hoping to smooth things over. When she refused to accept them, he assumed she was still angry. He promised that once his first love graduated, they'd cut ties completely. He swore he'd never betray her again, and that once she returned, they'd finally discuss marriage. But before she could respond, he had already walked away. That was the final straw. She felt nothing anymore. The man she once loved was no longer in her heart, so she continued preparing for her trip abroad, planning to return and marry the CEO instead. Months later, a phone call from a friend shattered her peace. The engagement with her ex hadn't been cancelled. She immediately called the CEO, demanding answers. He told her to be patient, and with no better option, she hung up and waited. Meanwhile, her ex-fiancé's mother complained constantly about the girl's temper. She believed her son couldn't handle someone so proud. What she didn't know was that the girl had no interest in staying in that marriage either. A kind housemaid tried to defend the girl's character, reminding her she had a good heart underneath it all. By the time they finished talking, the girl had already returned. The fiancé's mother quickly changed her tone, greeting her with fake warmth. Inside, the grandfather was delighted. He had always hoped this girl would become part of their family, but as he asked where the grandson was, the butler brought in a tabloid, showing the fiancé entangled in yet another scandal with his ex. The grandfather's hands trembled with fury. The girl remained calm. She knew this was part of the CEO's plan, to give her a perfect excuse to cancel the old engagement, and formally propose a new one. She turned to the grandfather and calmly said, "I'd like to marry the CEO instead." He assumed she was acting out of anger, but she held his gaze. "I'm serious," she said. "My only worry is that he might say no." But before anyone else could speak, a familiar voice answered from the doorway. "I agree." The CEO stepped into the room, and just like that, a new chapter began.